we are going to have to look at all these different ways that the medications work. And, you know, a lot of practitioners will be like, oh, this is my favorite because of this. Like, I see this a lot of times with doctors, like, this is my favorite because it does this. Like, the weight loss is faster with this one. Is faster weight loss better for you? I'm not sure. The blood sugar is better with this one. Okay, great. But are you measuring A1C, or are you looking at fasting insulin, fasting glucose, and a continuous glucose monitor? So one of the reasons assessment underneath the hood is so important is that just because a medication can get results doesn't mean that's the medication we want to use. I famously, and it's probably inappropriate, but whatever, sometimes I go there, you know, I always say like, hey, people lose a lot of weight on chemotherapy. Like, I am not advising chemotherapy as a protocol for people to lose weight, right? So there are plenty of medications that are out there. And we've seen this with statins. We've seen this with COX-2 inhibitors, medications for pain. We've seen where the other effects of them in the ecosystem are not favorable to an individual. And so we're right to pay attention there, and to really focus on that, you know, and look at new medications. On the flip side, do these medications cause blindness? Do these medications cause ocular stroke? Do these like, there are things that like, oh, the research says this, or look at what it could do in a rat or a mouse. Like, I'm sorry. Rat and mice might have a lot of similarities with us, but they are never walking down the street and trying to figure out how to not go to Starbucks, or what they're going to get at Safeway, or, you know, like what somebody's serving for them. And they're also not adjusting to like how the person on the other line or the person driving just made them feel, like, and their past traumas, right? So there is so much about our eating choices that we can't look at animal research, and we can't always just look at human research in isolation. There's valuable information there. Dr. Ronnie Bonnick shared with me, because I had gone and asked her the question about the ocular stroke. I was like, hey, I saw this. And she said, yeah, Ashley, it's really important that anybody that's on this or is choosing these medications asks their ophthalmologist or optometrist, do they have a small optic nerve? Because those were the people that ended up having an ocular stroke. Well, it turns out, and this is like way out of my area, it turns out that not many people have that smaller nerve. I don't know if that's a genetic thing or if that happens with disease. Like, I don't know anything else about that. But hey, that's a smart question. So I went into my eye doctor and I asked, right? I was like over at Target or something. I can't remember where I was, but I was like, hey, while you're looking, like, what's the size of my optic nerve look like? He's like, you've got a great optic nerve. You know, it's like normal, you know, he's like, you're normal. And I said,
I'm going to do this too.
This is helpful, right? And he asked me why I was asking, and he turned around and said, you know what? I'm not even going to ask patients if they're on the medication or not. He's like, I am going to now put in my notes, I am going to tell every patient that comes in, and if somebody has a small optic nerve, I'm just going to mention that they should talk to their doctor if they're considering this type of medication.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you save one person,
right? Yes.
I mean, that is awesome. But you touched on something earlier that I just want to go back to.
Okay. Yeah.
Just about the testing that people may not be familiar with. But I think like everything could look normal. People could look like, oh, I'm losing weight, but it speaks to that. Oh, I'm losing weight. Terrific. It's successful medication, but they're not looking at the right measurements. And then you also spoke about quickly, but I love this diagnostic testing of doing people wearing a constant glucose monitor. I do fasting insulin, your A1C. So I just wanted to mention that, like, if you don't know where to look, everything might look like we're doing great. We're like, everything is fantastic. And you mentioned that, and I just think it's a very important point.
Thank you. The reason my team, they're amazing at Harper One, and I worked with this incredible developmental editor writing my book. And it's always interesting when you are the nutritionist and you're talking about this, but in the space of weight health, everybody has their ideas, right? So I started off this book and I was like, okay, there's a bunch of stuff. I just have to tell people, like, you got to unlearn this. Like, this is that. And ultimately I was like, you guys, like, I curse. I'm like, here we go. So it's SH*T. Like, you got to unlearn this stuff. And I went through, like, if your cholesterol is low, you are not heart healthy. If your A1C is under 5.5, you do not have optimal blood sugar. If your A1C is pre-diabetic, you may actually not be pre-diabetic, like it listed in that area. And if your A1C is diabetic, we need to understand, even further, what's going on in there, because it could be related to your eating, your insulin, like all these different factors, right? when we look at your blood work and we use certain markers, those markers are the equivalent of the total number on the scale. We have to stop using those. And here's the thing, you and I were in practice before an A1C was available. I love that an A1C is now available. We never had a 90-day average before. We only had, you prick your finger, it's why diabetics had such a hard time before there were continuous glucose monitors. On that part, but the A1C has been hailed as this diagnostic tool, just like the BMI has been hailed as this diagnostic tool, just like total cholesterol, LDL, and HDL have been hailed. And it's not true. What we need to do is we need to get in there and look at the composition of what's going on, within there, and then also understand any impacts that a medication or a supplement is going to have on that part. Super, super important. And none of this is like, oh, life was perfect after that. Like there's no story on that part. This isn't about like, oh, and then he lost 700 pounds and it was the greatest day of his, whatever. That's not the story. Okay. But there are nuances in here. Like this was the thing that needed to move. This is how their plan came together. And then I give you the assessment, and then I give you from the assessment how to go in and actually build your plan. And then there are resources online and access, to the coach in that part. Why did I do that? Because what we're talking about is optimization. This never ends. Like you're always, so Bonni and I could see you today and we could say, okay, here's our plan to help you build some muscle. I love that you've been hitting it hard at the gym. I'm looking at your protein sources. I think you're doing a great job. I feel like creatine and taurine, which are going to be like you're getting them in, but I feel like we might use that supplementally, as an adjunct here. And I think if we added some magnesium so that your muscles can relax, you can sleep better. And you noted that you're not pooping quite, as well as we'd like you to. So let's go ahead and add that in. That's not us telling you that's your plan and that's going to work. We are now inviting you to experiment and to, start experimenting with that and see how that works for your body on that part, right? So what we want you to do is we want you to come in and experiment with that, and we can start to see how that works for you. And then we're always going to assess the outcome. So how am I going to know if you're actually building muscle? We're either going to use a scale, we're either going to use a measurement around your arm, around your waist, anything that we have access to. We might see if you can lift something, each week. We might see how heavy or how long you can hang, or, any of those things, so that we can actually judge the progress. And this is what we do ongoing. But what can often happen, and this is where I think many people leave a conversation with us, is we will say this is really complicated, right? There's I want you to understand the complexity of the body's ecosystem, but there is always one or two things you can do right now that is going to move you forward. And this is not about you changing everything in your life. And it also isn't about you coming in and giving up everything, because we know, and we always find it. It's how we practice. We come in and we do an assessment. We know you're doing a lot of stuff already better right now. So we just want you to get the advantage.